Hey guys, so I bought a house. Yeah, hi. Before we get into that, first off, this is going to be a reading vlog which will be spanning for 2 weeks because I am partaking in Realmathon this month, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to have my TBR jars pick my TBR for most of the month. I do have a few things I want to get read, but it's like not too much. For the most part, I can rely on my TBR jars to pick up books from my fantasy shelves specifically. However, thus far, I have started onto the books that I actually do want to get read for like a reason. So first up, I am reading Yours Truly by 𝗖cieः𝘁𝘁. I'm actually buddy reading this with Michelle at Michelle's Library. This is one of very few books that I'll be reading this month that isn't a fantasy. However, I have an ARC reading vlog that's actually gonna come out prior to this vlog, so I'm not even really gonna talk about this book at all. But basically, for an update, I'm currently about 25% into it. I also started on my first pick for the Trans Girl April readathon, and that is 𝗖cieः𝘁𝘁𝘁 and Notorious Liars. This is really funky. It's fantastical, but it's also not. It seems as though it's kind of based on the author's life, but it's not quite a memoir because there are like fantastical elements to it. For example, at one point we see the main character and their sister helping to save mermaids. At this point, we were following a young Asian trans girl who ends up running away from home. She is just trying to find herself to be the person she wants to be. The only real guilt she feels is in leaving her little sister, unfortunately. Interesting jumps, like it's not a linear timeline. There are little like journal entries specifically talking about this girl's knife that she keeps on hand. Already content warning for self-harm. It's so funky. Like, I don't know how to feel about this book, but it's very funky. I'm very intrigued by it. The audio is not long. I think the whole thing is maybe 4 hours and I'm listening at 2 times speed, so I'll probably finish it tonight, which ties back in to I bought a house. I am not 100% moving in yet because we have some stuff that I still want to get done around the house. For example, I do want to go through and put new carpets into the bedrooms and repaint them. So I want to do that before I get any furniture and move in that section. Thankfully, there were like these appliances here. I need to buy a washer and dryer. I need to buy a new bed. I need to buy a new dresser. All that stuff's expensive. So that's going to take a little bit of time, meaning since this house isn't too far from my parents' house, I'm going to still be living there, but like slowly moving over here as things get done and as I buy things. So to start out, kitchen is the most finished area of the entire house, and I have a ton of kitchen stuff, which obviously isn't getting used at my parents' house because my mom has her own kitchen set up, meaning I can easily transition all of this stuff over here. I don't have everything, but I have a fair amount of stuff. You can't see any of it, but I have a ton of boxes, and I figured this is prime time to both get some B-roll in and listen to some audiobooks. I'm gonna be hanging out here for the next few hours. I actually brought dinner. I also want to go through and like clean out the cabinets first, and then I have cabinet liners to put in. Anyway, so that's it for now. I'm gonna go, and like I said, I'm gonna listen to my audiobook and get started on all of this. Hey guys, so it is the 5th, and I wanted to give y'all a little update because I finished out 𝗖cieः𝘁𝘁𝘁 and Notorious Liars. Unsurprisingly, it was when I was unpacking stuff because this audiobook was quite short. I don't remember if I gave a summary of the story, but basically we are following this young trans girl who ends up running away from home, finding a family for herself in the city, and eventually they create this gang that goes around attacking men who have been attacking trans women in their area. This book was weird, wild, but it was very beautiful. It feels almost like a dream, but it definitely tackles some nightmarish topics. I really loved a comment from the author, I believe it was in the acknowledgments, where they said that she wanted to write a book that she would have wanted to read as a young trans girl. There's so much beauty in this book, but it also doesn't ignore the grim realities of being a trans woman. There is a big focus on violence throughout this story and the strange sort of comfort that the main character finds in it. She's healing and developing as the story progresses forward, and oftentimes that is shown in very fantastical ways with these absolutely beautiful descriptions, which kept me incredibly invested. Every single relationship our main character has all impact her in different ways and really come together to create the final character we know by the end of this book. Our narrator is actually nameless the entire way through, and yet I still connected with her so much by the end of the book. Along with the fantastical descriptions, there were also some very clever utilizations of different motifs like killer bees or her pocket knife. Like, all in all, I really enjoyed this book. My one real criticism is I just kind of wished it was a little bit longer, because there were so many topics that were talked about. There were so many topics that were brought up that I felt like it could have had some of those topics given more time, allow them to really breathe and feel more well incorporated into the story. I really enjoyed this. A very short read, super weird but gorgeous. That I read this for Trans Girl April, but it worked out very well that this was a fantasy book. So with that, I thought I would go through all of the prompts this book ended up hitting. Obviously, this was a fantasy, so I got bonus points for that. Word related to another realm in the title. I figured either fierce, notorious, or liars. Any of those sounded like they could go in the thriller realm. I think it was sanctum. Sanctum was the thriller realm. This is a Own Voices story. Dysfunctional family also definitely has that in the found family that our main character ends up joining. A book I didn't buy, got this from the library. And then finally, monster on the cover. I went with either the mermaid tail, which is on here, but also the hands, I believe, are referencing a character who is named a witch in the story. So witch, mermaid, one of those, kind of monstrous. And while I have you here, I am at about 75% into yours truly, so I probably will be finishing this tomorrow. I've been very sucked into it today, so if I have time tonight to really settle in and keep reading, I might even finish this tonight, but I'm not going to guarantee that. All in all, I am enjoying this book. It's very adorable. I am super invested in our main character's relationship, but dear God, do I hate fake dating, and I'm very aware of it in this story. Least favorite trope. I don't like it. I'm also listening to the audiobook of Heroes by Stephen Fry. This one I am really enjoying because it is just Stephen Fry telling me the different stories of the Greek heroes. Every single chapter is a different hero, and then their stories are broken down into different segments. We follow each of them from the time they are birthed, usually due to some deity seducing a woman. Sometimes in really weird forms, looking at you, Zeus. And then we watch as they go on different adventures, and we see a lot of the times what their tragic ending was. I've seen Hercules, Perseus, I'm currently in Orpheus. There was one guy whose name I don't know how to pronounce. Bellerophon. He was the guy who had Pegasus. Apparently. Didn't know that one. I'm currently 178 pages into this one. At least with the audiobook, I'm working through it pretty quickly. I don't know what I'm gonna do when I finish this book because I'm physically reading this, audiobook reading this. Obviously, I have a physical copy. I could try to work through it a little bit faster, going audio and physical route, but I also kind of want to use my TBR jar and get my first pick that's random. I don't know. We'll see. I'll figure that out in the future. That's a problem for future Nat. Hey friends, so I officially finished out yours truly, and yeah, I have very conflicting feelings about this book. I'll just leave it at that. Like I said earlier, I have an official ARC reading vlog that's going to be coming out prior to this vlog, so go check that out for a full review if you're curious, but I'm just going to leave you with, I've already found someone else to give this book. Apart from that, I've also worked a little bit further into heroes. I actually
Don't think I updated where my bookmark was. Seeing as how I'm going to be filming a little bit, I didn't really listen to the audiobook when I was driving home. I listened to music to amp myself up for filming. I know I'm roughly in the 200 area though, and I am continuing to really enjoy this. I love listening to the audiobook. I love Stephen Fry telling me these stories. Perfect timing also, because seeing as how I'm rewatching Bones, I have just hit his character recently. It was just perfectly coordinated. I get to hear his voice whenever I'm watching TV. I get to hear his voice when I'm reading my audiobook. And as much as I am enjoying this book, I'm just really excited to officially dive into my random reads. So I grabbed the TBR jar, and you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna draw my first card, and we're gonna figure out what is the first random book off of my owned TBR I'm gonna be picking up. Okay, so we have our cards, and I'm gonna try and pull something out from the middle. Kind of just work our way down. What is this? Awesome. Allie picks my TBR. Allie's my best friend. She's been in a few videos, so I'll put a link to one of those in the cards up above. This means I have to text her, which also means this angle is probably gonna change. So I will talk to y'all again whenever she texts me back. Hello again. Okay, so Allie finally texted me back, and she was between two things, but she officially decided on 𝗖cie by Gina Rose Nethercott. This works out pretty well for me because this is a standalone, so I'm not going to complain about that, meaning I will have more opportunity to pick more books. As far as I know, this is basically like a Baba Yaga retelling, and I believe we're following two people who are descendants of Baba Yaga. But when called to receive a mysterious inheritance, the siblings are reunited only to discover that their bequest isn't land or money, but something far stranger. A sentient house on chicken legs. I have heard a few reviews about this now, and mostly positive, so I am excited to get into this one. I just haven't heard a ton about it. I honestly don't know if I have a audiobook possible for this to listen to as well, so that might have worked out really well anyway. I can continue listening to the audiobook of Heroes and reading 𝗖cie physically.
Oh, are we in a cutscene? I have my helmet off. I'm ready to go. Ready to talk.
Hey guys, so it's the 10th, and yesterday was Easter, so happy Easter if you celebrate. I just wanted to talk to y'all because I finished out the next book, Heroes by Stephen Fry, and I love this one just as much as Mythos. I just feel so cultured while reading this book, but at the same time I felt so incredibly entertained. Stephen Fry just does a phenomenal job of retelling these stories. He brings such life to them. He makes them so easily digestible while also still having the main focus of each story. Unsurprising, there were a few times where we were covering topics that I've learned about from other books already. I was reading Stone Blind a few months ago and obviously could see that story from the different sides, and I appreciate with that perspective that Fry always allows a little bit of wiggle room in each of his stories, because there isn't just one telling of these myths. He mentions how often these myths change based on which classicist is talking about them, what historian is looking at the layout of the story. At the end of the book, he actually had a section where he talked about how many of these stories have different discrepancies going on. He talks about Hippolyta, the queen of the no, not Hippolyta, Antiope. the queen of the Amazons. He talks about how in one story she is actually killed whenever Hercules travels to the land of the Amazons, but at the same time in another story, based on the histories that are laid out, she was still alive because she had to marry Theseus. Or, well, not marry him, but like they had a child together. I just greatly appreciate the way he tells these stories. They're so entertaining. He adds such personality to them, and I think listening to the audiobook really reinforced that because every single person he gives a different voice. Across the board, I just had so much fun with this one. I'm really glad I read it. I have a video that is actually going to be coming out next Monday, so keep your eyes peeled for that, where I will have a full-out review talking about this book. It'll be a little bit more coherent than right now, where I'm kind of just flying by the seat of my pants. So for this one, it completed a retelling, spelling my name on the book, and then a book that plays with history. Because like I was saying, with the different stories based on which historian is like looking at it or the mythology it is discussing, there's different layouts. So I felt like that one definitely made sense here. On top of that, I got 10 bonus points for this being a fantasy book, and then I got 20 bonus points for the length because this is chunky. So this book, done. I also have gotten a bit further into 𝗖cie_HIH. I am currently at chapter 17. I am at 143 pages. I don't know how to feel about this book. Right from the get-go, I just want to say that it feels like this should be a character-based story, but I don't really know if I like the characters or not. So in this book, we are following the only living descendants of Baba Yaga, and they end up inheriting Baba Yaga's house, obviously, the house on chicken legs. The Yaga siblings are 𝗖cie and 𝗁𝗁. Each of them have like magical abilities. I'm not really sure if 𝗖cich's are necessarily like magical abilities. They're described like he's a shapeshifter, but at the same time, it also is described in such a normal way. He just pays attention to the little minute things people do that make them so characteristically themselves, and he is able to mimic that, and it confuses people. It's interesting, but I'm also really confused because is he actually shapeshifting, or is it just like a mind trick? And then 𝗁𝗁's are kind of used as like a twist, so I'm not gonna reveal what that is, but she calls hers the Ember Ring. We also have occasional chapters where we actually see through this like omniscient narrator that is 𝗖cie_HIH, the house. I actually like those the most. I definitely think in those chapters it's really more focused on the atmosphere, really thriving in creating the cozy setting of the house. And that's one thing I think the author does do a really good job with, is she has established this very well created setting and atmosphere, kind of similar to like Erin Morgenstern's writing, but it just doesn't have the whimsy. The writing itself isn't nearly as lyrical, so it doesn't feel as whimsical, because although the cozy vibes are definitely there, at the same time, I really don't understand what this world is. I don't get the magic. I thought 𝗖cie_HIH was like really unique, but then it's commented that there are other magical buildings that will develop feet, eyes, faces, different things. And then we eventually find out that our two characters who have these abilities apparently aren't the only people in this world that have abilities, but it's never expanded upon. The atmosphere is really strong, but like the world itself is not. I don't like 𝗖cie. He is very cocky in that obnoxious way. I could understand how other people might find him charming, but honestly, he just drives me up a wall. 𝗁𝗁 I like, but I also kind of just want to shake her because she continuously is just going along with whatever 𝗖cie says, and like there is a reason for it, but personally I have a limit. Like I would have put my foot down and started asking questions by this point, and she still hasn't. Then the plot. The plot is weird. These two have inherited this house, and 𝗖cie doesn't really care about it, but 𝗁𝗁 wants to own the house. She wants to live there full time. So 𝗖cie makes her a deal that they are going to travel in this house and perform puppet shows together. They're gonna do this for a year, and at the end of that year, he gets all of the money and 𝗁𝗁 gets the house. You're probably wondering, where the hell did puppet shows come from? Their parents are apparently like famous puppeteers, and so they grew up doing puppet shows, so that's how we got there. And then there's like this villainous character that we also see a little bit from. No idea where that's going yet. And then we get flashbacks where we see Baba Yaga, and like the basis of the original story and the house and all of that. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this book thus far. I want to like it, but I really don't know how I'm feeling. Since I finished Heroes, I can pick the audiobook for this one up, and I think that'll help me work through it a little bit faster. I actually am gonna go take Faith on a walk here in a minute so that I can listen to it. This is a strange experience thus far. Hey guys, so it is the 13th. Yeah, it's been a minute since I filmed an update. I just haven't made the time, but we have a development. I actually ended up deciding to DNF 𝗖cie~hogy𝘁. I don't have the cover on, but that's what this is. I got to chapter 30, page 256. I think I was at roughly about 57%. So because I had read more than 50% of this book, I could still count it for points. I'm bummed because I had this on my physical shelves. I really was hopeful that I would enjoy it. I've never read a Baba Yaga retelling before, so I was really excited to try that out. But like, I was just so bored. The plot is all over the place. There are way too many things going on. I cannot stand Isaac at all. He was really the biggest part of why I put this down, because I was just getting so aggravated with how often he was lying to his little sister, how he was just like such a dick to everyone around him. I hated him. I could not stand reading in his perspective, reading him being a jackass to Bellatine anymore. I gave up. I'm really bummed, but this was not working out for me. From the reviews I've looked at, it does seem like this does have fairly mixed opinions. A lot of people either give it like 4 stars or DNF it. So unfortunately, I fell into the DNF category. I wasn't 100% sure I was gonna DNF this, but I ended up sleeping on it and deciding that yes, I was going to. So the next morning, I didn't really have time to film a full out update, which is why I just went ahead and filmed my drawing of my next prompt. And so we ended up picking The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. There were 3 books on my shelves that were published in April, and this was the shortest, is a standalone, and I am very intrigued by it. I've been wanting to pick this up for a while. When I went in, all I really knew was that we were following this girl who is coming out into society, but she has these telekinetic abilities which are looked down upon, and she ends up meeting this man who also has telekinetic abilities. They strike up a bit of a relationship and he starts to train her with them. That's all I knew. Now I'm at chapter 18 and 118 pages in, and I can tell you that holy shit, this is a fantastical Wuthering Heights. So we're following Nina, who is the one coming out into society. Although she is actually from the country, she is staying in the city with her cousin and his wife, and they are trying to help her become more proper, more of a societal lady, and hopefully garner the attention of a rich gentleman. Unfortunately, instead, she ends up becoming smitten with Hector, who, while he is fairly rich, is a telekinetic performer, and that is a occupation that is looked down upon, because in this world, even though many people have different sorts of abilities, having one is kind of looked at as like a lower societal thing, especially to utilize it for entertainment. But she is totally smitten with Hector. Turns out Hector was childhood sweethearts with Nina's cousin's wife. Her name is Valerie. She's the freaking worst. Valerie ended up marrying her husband for money because she felt a bunch of pressure from her family in order to secure a marriage with somebody who is rich, because that way it would help to fund her family, basically. And now she kind of just clings on to her relationship because of that, and because of the status. She's very obsessed with status and with being wealthy, having these fantastic things to fill their house. She's just the worst. And so that's like our little triangle. So obviously, I definitely liked Catherine more than I like Valerie, but I feel equally as bad for Nina as I did with Kathy's little cousin. This poor girl is so naive and thinks she has found somebody who is so nice, who really understands her. But yet, at the point I have just hit, she has become aware of the fact that Hector and Valerie have a past in a not great way. So this is very dramatic. The magic system isn't really explained, but the fantastical society that Moreno Garcia has created, gorgeous, beautiful, definitely feel like it's very reminiscent to Bridgerton, and also just more interesting because of the fantastical elements. We hear from Nina that apparently there are starting to be studies into why these people have these abilities. That's about it. We know that she and Hector have telekinetic abilities, but apparently there are people who are like pyrokinetics or is it aquakinetic? Waterbenders, apparently. Let's just go with that. So the world itself is really interesting, and then Moreno Garcia creates absolutely fantastic atmosphere. I will say I do love her character work because she creates amazing morally gray characters, even if I really don't like Valerie. Hector I have mixed feelings on, but Nina is the best. She is pure, she is sweet. I just want to give her a hug. Apart from this, I also wanted to talk about the fact that we are coming up onto Peace Talks, which is going to be a 48-hour readathon where I think like all of the books we read, we get double points or something along those lines. So of course, most people are planning to read a lot of shorter books, get your team as many points as possible, and I'm also going to be one of those. I am. However, I actually have a plan that kind of mixes Peace Talks with Jan's 48-hour readathon that I'm doing for her Patreon and a video idea for something else. I'm not actually going to have that bit in this vlog. My plans are that I'm going to be reading a lot of comic books. Oh yeah, these babies are heavy. So first off, I officially am going to try and finish out my run of Spider-Gwen that I have. So I've got Volume 4, Predators, Volume 5, Gwenum, and Volume 6, The Life of Gwen Stacy. These are all by Jason Latour, and I believe illustrated by Robbie Rodriguez. I also am gonna try and read the like 3.5 that I think is Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen sitting in a tree or something like that, but it's talking about Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales' Spider-Man's relationship, and they're really cute, but I have to get that one from my library. So if I read all 4 of those, I will officially finish out the Spider-Gwen run I'm in the middle of. I also am hopeful to finish out the Harley Quinn run. I think I have Volume 4, 5, and 6 also. I don't remember the names for all of them, but I do know they are by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti. Then I borrowed some from my brother. So first we have the Dark Knight, other side. Batman, The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. So this is technically multiple different books, but it's the 4-part bind up. If you know nothing about comic books, but you have a passing knowledge of the movies, basically this was one of the main pieces utilized for the Batman vs. Superman movie. Even though that movie wasn't great, there were some moments that were straight from these comics. Then I also stole the Spider-Man Civil War bind up, which, oh my god, it's a chunky baby. Another one I've been wanting to read for quite a while. My brother actually owns almost all of the bind-ups, excluding one. He said this would probably be the best one to start with because it has like one of the most pivotal characters in Civil War. I do already know what that is. I've still been wanting to actually read the Civil War series, so I'm gonna start with this one. I may pick up some of the others. It really depends on how much I get read over this weekend. I'm hoping to do like a full out 24-hour reading vlog, but we'll see on how that goes. I may have to do the timer method, which means it could stretch out for a lot longer than just the weekend. So that's it for now. I hopefully will have one more update before I officially end out this vlog for the first 2 weeks of Realmathon, and then I will have a secondary vlog for the rest of the month. Hey guys, excuse all of this. It's really late on a Friday night, and not only did I have to work super freaking late because tax season is the worst, but also I was helping my parents to babysit my niece and nephew. It's been quite an eventful night, but I have to do this update now, or else I'm just officially gonna finish out this book. I am absolutely loving The Beautiful Ones. It's a soap opera. Like, I was explaining this to my mom, and her first comment was, I thought you hated those sort of stories. I thought I did too, but I think The fact that it's Silvia Moreno Garcia means I'm enjoying it way more than I would be from somebody else, because I love her writing. The atmosphere is absolutely fantastic. Every single chapter, she takes the time to really bring the whole setting to life, to reinforce this fantastical world in some way. I just love that aspect of her writing, and that is a reason why I keep picking her books up. Her character work is so good. It's so good. There really isn't much of a plot going on in this. It is all about character dynamics. I am completely enthralled. I hate Valerie so incredibly deeply. Genuinely want to take Nina away from all of these people because she deserves so much better. I'm still not the biggest fan of Hector, but at least he's aware of the wrongs he's done. He's tried to atone for them, and it actually seems like he has gone through some growth, which, I mean, we did officially get ages, and Nina just turned 20, which puts my estimation for Hector's age around like 30. So this is actually split into two sections. So you have the first part and the second part. The first part is more focusing on Nina and Hector's original relationship when she believed he was courting her, but in reality he's just trying to get near Valerie. And then there's the second part after she figures out what is happening and realizes, he's not here for me. Valerie continues to be the absolute worst. She's just incredibly hypocritical and a narcissist, obsessed with wealth and all of the little bits and baubles she can garner to try and showcase her status. It's exhausting. I really loved that there was this specific scene where Hector is getting in a fight with somebody else to talk about taking Nina's hand, and he comments like, she's not yours, she's not mine, she's her own person, she should make her own decision. Thank you for being the only person here who has given her any agency, any autonomy, particularly when the one other main female character in the story, Valerie, is continuously taking that away from her. And like, I understand why, because unfortunately, due to circumstances, Valerie did not have all of the benefits in her life that allow Nina to act the way she does, but that doesn't give Valerie the right to strip Nina of those rights. It's fantastic. The discussions taking place within this book are phenomenal. I love it. The first half is definitely very Wuthering Heights. The second half goes a little bit more off the rails. I am really enjoying this. This is working out great for me. I actually could see myself rereading this and maybe like working through and annotating it, because I'm enjoying this way more than I thought I would when I realized what sort of a story this was gonna be. Anyway, so it's Friday night, it's the 14th. Technically speaking, peace talks have officially started, but since I've had such a crazy night, I haven't actually gotten to read anything. If I do get really absorbed into this, I wouldn't be terribly shocked if I finish it this weekend. However, like I said before, my plans for peace talks is to mostly focus on comic books. And I also mentioned I have another video that's going to be focusing on all of that. Right now, this is the end of this vlog. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. And check out the follow-up to this vlog, which will be coming out in 2 weeks. Love you, bye!